Greetings and welcome to another exciting episode of the Why I Love Disney podcast. I'm here, as always, with my friends David and Easton. How are you, fellas?
Doing well. How are you?
Doing good.
Man, I am fantastic. We are in the throes of huge news breaking all around, reverberations heard all around the world, and that is that the release date for Andor Season 2 was announced.
Big announcement. Biggest thing going right now.
Yeah, just announced that it's coming out in April. And if you were excited and waiting for news about that, you are now a happy person, because the best Star Wars, controversially, is Rogue One. The best Star Wars series is Andor, and it gets Season 2, and it's now announced. They finished shooting in February, and it will release in April, and I'm super pumped about that. Biggest news of the year 2024 so far. Man, I want your live reactions to that. Go.
Well, you know, that's all I've heard on the media for about a week now. Just Star Wars. You know, there's been nothing else to really talk about. Nothing in politics, nothing like that. It's just all been, you know, what's coming out at Disney.
Yeah, and I think depending on, you know, which way you lean politically, you might be rooting for the Emperor and the Empire, or you may be for the Resistance. I'm not really sure, but either way, there's an analogy in there for every side to pull for. So it's just everybody wins. There we go. So
there you go.
Yeah, I'm super pumped about that. But if you haven't heard, we did the election is over. We will have a new president. A new former president, Donald Trump. And I do think, regardless of whether that makes you happy or sad, it is the reality of the situation. I think most objective observers would say it was kind of stunning in its scale and sweep, that it was pretty much an overwhelming win, kind of what we call a good old-fashioned butt whooping back where I grew up, and it wasn't even particularly close, which was really the only thing I was really rooting for, was not a close election, but it wasn't close. So I thought it would be interesting to hear your thoughts, and I've thought a little bit about this, of what do you think this means for Disney? What do you think this means for Disney fans? Right? And what do you think overall the next 10 years looks like in media, streaming, all of the above, because of the impact of this election? And I don't mean so much as who won, but I mean how he won, right? What does this tell you? And do you have any instinct or thoughts about, will this make any difference at all about how things happen at Disney, positively or negatively? Easton, you go first.
Oh, gosh. Well, honestly, I really hoped, regardless of whoever won, they could just get some kind of rapport with Disney and at least be on good terms, whoever it was. The fact that it is Trump's really tight with Elon Musk, and Elon Musk is doing really good in everything that he's doing. We've seen we've talked about the robotics things that he's been working on, and how incredible that could be with animatronics and things that goes on in the parks. So if Trump can be really tight with Disney, and by association, Elon might get into some kind of rapport, then I think it could be a good thing.
I love how Easton truly, like, MAGA to Easton means make animatronics great again.
That's the motto I live by.
Yeah, and I here's the thing, though. I actually think you might have had more chance of Elon working on animatronics if Trump would have lost the election. I feel like he's going to be a little busy. You know what I mean? But who knows? Maybe the technology trickles on down, and man, I'll tell you what, the stock market sure likes this. It looks like to me.
That's true.
So we're now the Monday after, almost a week after the post-election, and the stock market has not stopped going up, including Disney. Disney's back over $100 a share. David, what do you think?
Well, I mean, there's a lot of questions. You just asked like 5 more different questions right there. I did expect if he won that the stock market would go back up, and I was anticipating that Disney's would go back up, just guessing, but because that just seems to be something that normally happens. But I'm not sure how this is going to play out. Again, Easton, I think if Elon could give some tech advice to how to make animatronics the best they could ever be, that would be amazing. But I'm not sure we live in that magic kingdom yet.
Well, I'm a dreamer, dreamer's going to dream.
But it will be interesting to see because, the company has really, in the past 4 years to me, taken such a political stance that I think was greater than anything pre-pandemic. So now will it shift? What will it do? Was a lot of this coming from the fact of who was the president at the time and where they thought politics and the country and culture was going, and what does this election say about culture? Again, whether or not you're for him or against him or voted for him, because I know people that are conservatives that did not vote for him. I know people that are conservatives that did vote for him. I know people that voted differently than they've ever voted before. I know people that voted for her that I love, that love her, and I know people that I love that voted for him. So that, we've all got people that voted for both. So really it's not about that, but how is culture shifting, like a lot of websites and vlogs and blogs and the news are talking, or, it's just that the process where things just constantly go back and forth. It typically goes back and forth. We have two main parties and it typically goes back and forth. So maybe it's that. I don't know. I'm anxious, not anxious. I'm ready to see where it's going. I'm ready to see, how they respond. Do they dig in with a lot of their ideas and their ideologies, or do they back up and say, hey, let's get back in the mainstream middle, which is, where I think it's best. I think it's best, entertainment's best when it's not overly politicized either way, because then you get great stories that everybody loves and you get great entertainment that becomes iconic. To me, that's what makes entertainment great. It's an escape from all this, not more of it. Same way in the parks. So I think that's why some people, you say we're taking away Rivers of America at Magic Kingdom. Some people see that as an ideology. Some people see it as, it's just an old attraction that is going to get replaced with something that's more thrill-based. But some people see that as a shift in that, so what you're saying is that we can't celebrate the frontier anymore. So you've got all this stuff going on constantly. And it's like, how is the public perceiving it, and how will they respond? Will people just keep going anyway? I mean, I think that's been the biggest thing we've watched over the past 4 years as Disney's raised prices, as they've charged for fast passes. I mean, it's just been a lot of prices going up, and people keep going. What does it take for the public to shift culturally? So all that to say is, I don't know. I kind of anticipate that they'll try to continue their current ideologies to satisfy that group of people, but they're going to have to figure out financially how to do things that bring in the mainstream. What was the quote you've shared before that that Michael Jordan says? Everybody buys shoes. You gotta
even Republicans buy tennis shoes. Yeah.
So you've got to stay where your whole audience loves it. And I mean, I was even amazed this week. I got stories of this Disney vlog blocking this Disney vlog, and there's a lot of political back and forth, just even in the Disney community, of people that are so angry one way that he won, or angry that he happy that he won, and therefore people unfollowing people. And I mean, stories of people like abandoning their families and never speaking to their parents. I mean, it's just crazy right now. I think the dust has got us settled, but I already think we were seeing even in the movies, we were seeing, like, Inside Out was a good example, Inside Out 2, where they pull back into the center storytelling wise, and they created a movie that was a blockbuster. So if that continues, we'll know it had a little bit of effect, because they're watching how people are responding. What do you think?
Well, I'm just responding to kind of at the moment the stock market going crazy, including Disney stock. So you think about, if the impression is that Disney as a company has been a little bit left leaning in their media content, so to speak. I think we've talked a lot about that, and I think a lot of people would agree they've pushed the envelope post COVID with political statements and shows around from Strange World and Willow and things like that have gotten at very least raised eyebrows, and then just had flop after flop for a while, and then finally have some hits with Inside Out 2 and Deadpool and some of those. You start to ask, okay, where is the company headed? How much does this affect the bottom line? Because I always believed, yes, there is a probably a group of people who are ideologically driven first, right? But ultimately, a corporation exists to increase shareholder wealth. It exists for itself to make more money. And at the end of the day, if you lose money, you got to change your approach. I've always believed that at the end of the line. Now, the question is, do they think they can do that? And here's what I'm thinking. I'm watching this Disney stock price up, significantly in the last, week, along with everything else. So what does that mean? I actually think there's a couple things to take away from this. One is, I think Trump winning, and typically it might be with, if any Republican won, there is an economic optimism, right? I don't necessarily think that absolutely it's guaranteed that, prices are coming down and inflation is under control all of a sudden and taxes are going down, so you're going to have more money in your pocket. But I don't know if that's going to happen for sure. I think people on the left would say, no, that's not going to happen. However, I do think that a lot of people think that's going to happen or are optimistic that it will happen. And I think what you're seeing in the stock price is that economic optimism that, hey, regardless of prices, what if there's more money in my bank account, or I get more from my tax return so I could take a trip to Disney, right? And I think Disney is one of the beneficiaries of an economic optimism. If people have more money in their pocket, more discretionary income, if they're more optimistic that next year they'll have even more, then maybe they'll go ahead, if they were on the fence about planning that vacation to Central Florida, maybe they go ahead and book it. And if the stock market goes up, now you have more wealth generated as well. Just generally, people feel wealthier and happier and are more willing to spend more money. We saw that post-COVID when we got all those stimulus checks. So everybody's just itching to spend money. And I think that's a lot of what you're immediately seeing in a lot of this stuff. So that's my gut reaction. I do think there's a couple other things too about election, how the election may impact everything. I do think because of the overwhelming shift in the country to the right, and I think every demographic basically moved to the right and became more red. I mean, any breakdown you make it, Trump basically gained ground and won. I think that will lead, if people are smart and the companies are smart, it will lead to a little more caution in being overly idealistic in preaching to people. Because I think what happens, and I think everybody's guilty of this, you get into your bubble and you just start to think that everyone thinks like you, right? And when you're there, then you meet somebody. It seems like, well, surely I'm in the majority. I think most people think like me. And then you get an election like this, or some information that slaps you in the face and says, wait a second, maybe it's not like I thought. And I actually do think things have never been quite as liberal as I think it seemed the last 4 years. I think because of the way culture has gone, we talked about cancel culture and things of those things, that people were just afraid to say they disagreed with anything, right? And I think this election is showing that there's a lot of people who may have just not wanted to say anything that actually had some very strong objections to the way things were heading. And even I find myself too, like with Disney and some of the content that we've discussed and that has been more controversial, out there with conservative groups and whatever else, I find myself like just careful in how I criticize it, right? Even though I may not be comfortable with it. But this election shows me and shows other people, I think, too, that wait a second. No, we're not idiots for thinking or being kind of like raising an eyebrow at that thing. Culture, they shifted way too fast, in my opinion. And I think it outpaced where most of the American people were. And I think that this election was proof of kind of the pendulum swinging the other way. And I think if Disney is smart, and I actually do think there's a lot of smart people there, that they'll be very careful in the future of how far they push the envelope. If they want to continue to make money and be successful and be the family entertainment leader. That's kind of my quick take on it.
I think that's some great ideas, and I think that definitely the past 4 years of the pandemic, I felt like we were seeing things exponentially start to just ramp up with certain types of ideologies and things that were being pushed at us. And I don't know, how that exactly happened, but even back to the beginning of the pandemic, you started seeing a pushback with celebrities, saying things like, "Oh, we just all got to pull together. It's hard being locked up, but we can do it." And they're sitting in their mansions, and people. That was the first time I really saw people start pushing back and saying, "Hey, who are you to tell me what's tough when you are in your castle and your beautiful pool and you basically live in a resort? You're not experiencing what I'm experiencing. Stop saying that we're the same." And
right.
We've had a little bit more of that. And I think that's what we just saw more and more, even going into this election. I was probably most surprised by the turnoff of the celebrity endorsements and watching that from late night hosts to even the Avengers, a lot of Disney, actors and musicians and people that from Katy Perry, from the American Idol, and all these people coming out and supporting, which everybody has their right to support who they want to support. But a lot of these are paid endorsements. They're not free. And watching people respond online to, again, the economy is really struggling to most people right now, and to see a lot of money going to wealthy people to come up on stage and say who they're voting for. It's just not an interesting time to watch all this happen and see how people go, wait a minute, why are you being paid to say that you're voting for somebody? I don't know. So that's been interesting to watch, because I think that's kind of what people think of celebrities, whether they trust celebrities, whether they trust the legacy media, the nightly news, whether they trust the Disney company as a whole. I mean, I think that's what we're gonna. I think they've said they don't. I think this election kind of says we don't really believe you. We don't really believe your opinions. And I'm a little shocked by that, just with the like you said, just the enormity of how this turned out, that people spoke strongly. I think economy had a lot to do with it, but we definitely know that culture had a big play in it as well. There's just no denying it. It really did. A lot of cultural points were a lot of things you saw over and over. So I think, how that's going to play out. And again, we've got right in the middle of Disney with all this politicalness happening, this Hall of Presidents, that they created this whole tradition, starting with Bill Clinton, of the sitting president coming in and doing a speech. And we had Clinton, and we had George W. Bush, and we had Obama. I think Obama even got one of the newest, more elaborate animatronics when he came, to the stage. Then we've had, of course, Trump, which is really one of the worst animatronics they've ever done. Everybody thinks that's I don't think the Biden animatronic is very good either. But all that to say is here he's coming back. So a lot of people now are speculating that, what will they do? Will they redo the show? Will they cut him? Will he have a place? He did have a speech at one point. I did think, I wasn't surprised when Biden came in and they just went back to having the president say his oath. And I think that was probably the better bet from the beginning, because anybody even 20 years ago should have thought, hey, there could be a point where this could be a problem. But they didn't. I mean, isn't that crazy? All the way back with Clinton and George W. Bush, no one really thought this was going to be an issue. And now you can't imagine that you would let the president animatronic talk either way. Yeah. And they say that they've had to have security guards in there. I've never seen that. When I've been to the Hall of Presidents in the last 4 or 5 years, I've not seen that. I've not seen any booing. I've definitely seen when the Trump got applause. I don't know that I saw the Biden, not the Biden, the Biden animatronic get applause, but I haven't seen that disrespect. I mean, usually when I go in there, it's just a lot. It's a small crowd for the size of the room. You notice that. But anyway, we'll see in the next few months, what they decide to do with that, whether the Trump animatronic makes a return or they go a different direction. But it's going to affect everything. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you. I kind of have this thought about the Hall of Presidents, generally speaking, that, how do I put this? Is it super popular still?
No, it's not.
So there's that. So there's two things I'd like to think about. One is that the whole idea of the Hall of Presidents, correct me if I'm wrong, is this idea of the American project being celebrated, right? You have Democrats and you have Republicans. We have guys on different sides of the aisle that were mortal enemies in that, kind of immortalized in that, that's the wrong word, but in that, those animatronics there. And it's very inspiring and it's great, in my opinion, a really cool celebration of American history and of democracy and all of those things. There's a couple of things, though. I'm not sure if the general public is as we're just so polarized. It's not just there's that, but also on the same time, if you're the type of person that's going to go to the Hall of Presidents, are you really the type of person that's going to go boo? You know what I mean? Like, you know what I mean?
Well, they did. Yeah.
Well, yeah, but maybe the novelty of, hey, there's a Trump animatronic in there. Let's go see it. So that's kind of like an attraction in and of itself, I guess, when they put the new president in there. But generally speaking, on a normal day, I still go see the Hall of Presidents. But like if I have my 4 kids, I'm going to make them go. You know what I mean? Like, it's not like they're going to vote. Yeah, Dad, rope drop. Let's hit the Hall of Presidents, that kind of thing. I wonder if anyone has ever done that. Has anyone ever rope drop the Hall of Presidents?
I have seen people do the videos where they see if they can stay there all day.
You get a good nap in that place for sure.
Carousel of Progress, People Mover, Hall of Presidents. You could stay in there all day, but you'd probably memorize it pretty well when you came out. But
there you go.
I love all those old attractions for what they are, and I think it would be really sad if it went away because of its history. And have times changed? Yes. When you look at Walt Disney and the timing of things, he came along, Disneyland, and really Disney World, because you're just talking 15 years after. It's such a post-war optimism that build that, and that happens. That happened after the Revolutionary War. It happened after the Civil War. It happened after World War II. There's this post-war optimism of look what we can accomplish. We had the Industrial Revolution. You just have these things where people look what we can do, and the sky was the limit. It was Tomorrowland. It was the space age. It was man can do anything that he dreams. That was what Walt Disney was living in. And so to pay homage to the presidents was just something that people, because it was like, you can be president too. Look at these guys. They're normal guys. You can do this. That was the optimism of it. The problem is now we don't have creative people who can say, okay, here's the parameter. We've got a stage full of presidents. What do we do with that that's entertaining, that draws people into the room? And so it's like crickets. It's like, okay, this surely, with all the creativity in the world, somebody knows how to write this show. And there had been rumors that several, I think it was WDW Pro that was telling that it was going to be a Lin-Manuel, Weird Al were rewriting it, and I thought, what is that going to be? then I heard it was now people are saying that was actually going to be the Muppets. The Muppets were going to take it over
and talk about presidents.
I think it was just going to be a Muppet show about America. So I guess you were going to see all of them go. I've heard people say it was going to go back to being just Lincoln. I've heard all kinds of things. But again, you've got all these animatronics up there that are working fine. which is like, we just need a good show. We need something that's engaging, that people go. So this is kind of the way I was with Country Bears. Now we're going. I've heard now that it's really just been changed because they didn't want to pay licensing on all these country songs they've used for 50 years. That's why we're back to Disney songs. But I was always going, what if Brad Paisley was the host? What if Luke Bryan was in there? Could that have drawn more people in? Like if they just made if they were, by video, or they were an animatronic, or they were somehow, you had Dolly, we can't have Dolly because she's got her own part, but if you just had somebody in there that modernizes it just enough, I don't know. That's the way it's like, is there something they could do with Hall of Presidents that, is there somebody who could, but we have no one. We have no one right now who seems to be able to unify the country. And that's what it's had. You go back to World War II, you go back to even the 1920s with guys like Will Rogers, a lot of these characters that show up in the American experience over at Epcot. You had people that, regardless of what was going on, they did kind of unify the country. And I don't know who that is right now. That's, to me, is the biggest problem with Hall of Presidents. There's no one that everybody seems to go, wow, that person, they unify. I mean, there's just, who is that? I mean, even Taylor Swift, as big as she is, she's probably lost some supporters because she voted for Kamala Harris and was an advocate for her. So she probably lost some, maybe not many, but she may have lost some. So there's really, who could be an advocate for the Hall of Presidents or the riverboat? I mean, there's all these things. It's like this shouldn't be hard. I mean, regardless of your political leanings, you ought to be able to say, man, a lot of people made great sacrifices in the past for us to have the freedoms we have today. Add Martin Luther King. I mean, surely there's something we could do. I mean, maybe it's not just the presidents. Maybe it's all great Americans. Maybe maybe there are some presidents that did such hurtful things that we just need to take them out. I mean, everybody makes mistakes, though. There's just no one in history that you can lift up that hasn't made a bad mistake. It's whether you just want to talk about them or not.
All right, Easton, let me ask you, 5 years from now, does the Hall of Presidents still exist as it is today?
As it is today, I sure hope so, but I'm worried that it is becoming kind of like oh, that's just an old thing. Like, people just go to take a nap. No one really is as in it as they used to be. And so I'm worried that it might get some kind of big, crazy change. I really like the Hall of Presidents for all of the reasons. Like, the show is good. It is a good place to sit for a little while after you've had a big day. It's a good place to go sit, have some air conditioning. If you need to take a nap, it's a good place to take a nap. But I like it all around. I hope that it is the same, but I don't know if it'll make it much longer if no changes are made. Now, what changes should be made? I'm not sure. I don't really know, but I don't know how long it can really last if there's not some kind of update, something.
Right. Well, the thing is, and if you make it more real, if you start talking about people's flaws, well, that's like in the middle of your park day. Who wants to go? Who wants to go? Wow, it's kind of like going to watch the end of Rogue One. Who wants to go? Who wants to do that in the middle of your park day? It's like, wow, that's okay.
It's so inspiring, though.
Yeah. Oh, yes. This person was not a very nice person. Let's talk about that, because there are a few. I mean, everybody has some that you could go, wow, that is not who I would want to lift up on a podium. But again, the show is not about lifting up one person. It's just the idea that Americans governed by its people.
Yeah.
And they get to choose their people. And so but how do you celebrate that? I think it'll change. I think it will change, but how far, I don't know. I think the lands are more important than the attractions. That's what I've been reminded of in the past 4 years as this all has started talking. I think the idea of what each of those to Walt Disney, what Liberty Square represented, was probably more important than a president show. But we'll see. We'll see. I mean, I think that the pursuit of liberty was, and celebrating again. He loved looking at the past. He felt like America was where it was in the 1950s, 60s, and 70s because of sacrifices people had made, and he wanted to celebrate that. We just don't have a lot of that. I think we're probably 10 to 15 years away from looking back and doing that. I think it will come. I'm starting to think it will come. I'm just not sure what will be the catalyst to make that happen.
Yeah, I think y'all make a lot of great points, and I don't know either if it exists in 5 years as it is. It's just I would think you would want to avoid controversy as much as possible, right? And I'm not certain that's not a lightning rod, right? And it is right now. It is because maybe it's Trump and he's uniquely a lightning rod, but it could be anyone, right? Like,
right.
It could really, you don't know what's coming down the pipe. But I agree. I hope they keep it, because I do think that we have gotten to where, well, that person offends me or whatever, right? The American experiment is, our leaders are a reflection of us, like it or not. That in a weird way, Donald Trump is very much a reflection of who America is, right? For better or worse. And sometimes you don't like what you see in the mirror, but it's really important to look in the mirror. You know what I mean? And that's my only political statement of the day. So, well, I hope it stays.
I think again, as a Disney fan and especially loving things like Carousel of Progress, Country Bear, I never want to go. I don't enjoy going to the shows when I feel like the audience doesn't enjoy it. Like you can feel it. You can feel it. There's nothing worse than sitting in Carousel and like nobody's laughing at the jokes. If it looks like it's falling apart, the mouth isn't moving with the vocal tracks. If there are things that are off, even that was the way it was with Splash Mountain. If it's broken, you don't want to see it. It's like your pet. When your pet is 20 years old and can barely walk, your heart's breaking. And sometimes these shows feel like that. It's like, man, I love this, but my kids aren't loving it, and nobody's applauding, and everybody looks bored, and I hear somebody snoring. I mean, that can happen in any of those shows. So they really they gotta have. I want them to stay. I just want them to be. I would rather a show get an update, even if I don't like it as much. I would rather it get updated so it stays, because we can the good thing now is we can always watch it on YouTube, and we couldn't always say that, because you try to watch Horizons or World of Motion on YouTube. There are very few videos of those old Epcot attractions that you can that the video quality is very good. Now we have all of this stuff pretty well documented. You can go watch all the different versions just about of a Hall of Presidents. You can't watch the earliest versions, but you can listen to the sound recordings. All that stuff's available. So there's lots of ways to celebrate this and still have change and go, we keep it, but we update it. I think you have to do those things, or they can't maintain their entertainment value. They have to. It's got to be entertaining. It can't be there just same way with the riverboat. That's why I said, somebody can do something so that's not a passive ride. There's something you can do that makes that engaging, that you go, man, you got to go do that. If nothing else, you got to see the animatronics on the riverbank waving back at you. So they're the best you've ever seen. There's something over there that can make you want to ride that boat. So, I mean, we just need some really great creative people to come up with those things. Write some great Disney animated movies that take place on a riverboat. I mean, there's just something you can do that makes that ties that in.
Yeah,
that's my thoughts. Because hey, here's another thing. Moving right along, you want to stay relevant, because we've got Epic Universe coming. We've got Universal Parks making changes. You've got all this political stuff. It's going to affect everybody. There's a lot of things happening. Did you guys see that Dollywood just won TripAdvisor best? I think it was kind of the best. Was it the best value? Dollywood's won several big awards, I think, in 2024, but they just won a TripAdvisor award. I saw that where they beat out Magic Kingdom was number 2, and one of the Universal parks was number 3. I never thought, our family has done Dollywood so much. It's nearby. We travel that way a lot. We use it often as a travel, something to break travel when we're going from one place to another. We've done that many, many times over the past 20 years. I never would have thought years ago that I would see Dollywood in any poll, in any travel vlog company pick Dollywood over Disney for customer service, for food, for attractions, anything. It's really, but I think a lot of it has to do with the incredible value you get for it. And what do you guys think? Does that surprise you that Dollywood would outrank Disney? I mean, this is not the first time it's happened in a poll.
Yeah, I would, especially when you put the term value in there. I think the way Disney has been going recently, that it would not be difficult to beat it in a value survey. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
At some point, you just get so expensive that you're just a premium product, and no one's going to use the term value. Nobody's going to use the term value with a MacBook Pro or an iPhone 16, right? They might say incredible, right? But nobody's saying what a great value. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
It's just expensive.
Well, I mean, you would hope that, as the stock market goes up and if they're profitable, that they would say, okay, we're really profitable. We've got people, we got more people. We can drop some of these fees, but that never happens.
Right. Yeah.
That never happens.
Oh, it never goes down.
It never goes up. It never goes away. Their benevolence just never comes out. How can we help our customer base have a better experience by lowering the price for them? Mm-mm.
No, I'm with you there. Well, it should be interesting to see what happens. I really wanted to get your take on how you thought that the election will impact Disney, but we will see in the coming days, in the interim period before the inauguration. Things are already kind of moving fast, and we see the stock market responding. But it'll be curious to see if this keeps up, if we're just in a cycle. But it's very interesting nonetheless, and we will see what happens. But it's really interesting. We'd love to know your thoughts. We'd love your feedback. You can reach us at whylovedisney.com or on the social media channels. As always, if you've enjoyed the episode, thanks for sticking with us. We ask that you would share it with a friend and leave us a 5-star review. And until next time, fellas, it's always fun talking with you, all things Disney, and we'll see you next time.